Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first tutorial in Python. In this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to design a graphic user interface using Tkinter in Python. If you do not have Python already installed in your PC, then go on YouTube and search how to install Python. Once you have Python already installed, then there is nothing else to install because Tkinter already comes with Python. The graphic user interface we're going to design is this one right here. It's just a simple exam. We're just asking the user what is the color of an apple, what is the color of an orange, what is the color of a banana, what is the color of God. Then the user is going to use these checkboxes to choose one answer. For example, red, the color of an apple is red. Orange for orange, yellow for banana, God for God, and then the user is going to submit the exam, and then we're going to tell him how many questions he got. In my case, I got 4 out of 4 questions correct. So it's just a simple exam. So now let's go ahead and make it. In this file, I already have the basic Tkinter code written. It's just the code that we're going to use every time we use Tkinter. The first line says from Tkinter, import everything. And then we're going to set the root to TK. TK is short for Tkinter. And the title of the root is going to be exam. You'll see what I mean by that later. And then we're just going to add that root to the main loop. Now let's run this file. Let's see what happens. Run it. A window pops up. As you can see, the title of this window is exam. So there's nothing inside here. We have to put the exam inside here. This exam, we have to design it inside here. So let's go ahead and design it now. Alright, so first of all, let's write these questions down. Question 1, question 2, question 3, and question 4. Let's just write the questions down, and then we're gonna design the other things later. So I'm gonna leave a space here and then write a comment. This comment, let's say, write down the questions. So this is how you comment things in Python. Just write it using a hashtag, and then when you run the code, it's gonna be ignored. And then I'll call question 1. Question 1, you can call it whatever you want. And then that question 1 is gonna be equal to a label widget. A label widget in Tkinter basically just puts a label on the screen. And then we're going to add that label to root. And the text of this label is going to say, question number 1, what is the color of an apple? Let's run this and see what happens. Run it, and our window opens, but question 1 is not inside, so we need to put it inside using a system of grids. So Tkinter has got this system of grids, so we are going to set question 1. We are going to add question 1 to the grid. So you do that by writing question 1 dot grid, and then you assign a row and a column to it. So everything here is the grid. Now question 1, if we are going to put in the grid, question 1 is going to be in row 0 and column 0. And question 3 is going to be in row 0, column 1. And then the checkbox there is going to be in row number 1 and column 0. So let's write it down. So remember that the rows and columns always start from 0 and not 1. So we want question 1 to be in row 0 and column is equal to 0. Okay, there we have it. Now let's run it and see what we have. We run it, and a window pops up, and there we have it. Question number 1, what is the color of an apple? Now to write the other questions, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy question 1 and then paste it down once, paste it twice, and paste it one more time. Now all we have to do is change our wording. So this one is going to be question 2, and it's going to say question 2, and what is the color of a banana? And in the grid, we're also going to change that. It's question 2, and it's going to be in row 0 and column number 1. Now let's check it again. Question 2 is actually going to be below question number 1. So it's supposed to be in row 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's supposed to be in row number 3 and column 0. Yeah, so we change it here. It's row equal to 3 and column equal to 0. And then that is our question number 3. And it's going to say, question 3, what is the color of what? Let's check it again. Question 3, what is the color of an orange? So, yeah, color of an orange. So what is the color of an orange? And then in the grid, question 3 is supposed to be in column 1 and row 0. And that is question number 4. And it's going to say, question 4, what is the color of God? And the color of God is, I don't know, is it golden or God? Whatever you want to call it. And in the grid, question number 4, in the grid, we're going to, let's check it again. Question number 4, it's going to be in column 1 and the row is going to be 3. Yeah, it's going to be row 3 and column number 1. So that is row number 3 and column number 1. Now let's run it and see what happens. And boom, there we have them, 4 questions. Now, the next thing to do is to design these checkboxes. They are more like a multiple choice that the user is gonna choose from. So let's go ahead and design them. So we are going to put them down here. I'm just gonna leave a space and write a comment first. And the comment is gonna say, create the checkboxes. So first, let's create a variable for the first 2 checkboxes. And I'm going to call this one variable 1, and it's going to be equal to an integer variable. I will show you how we're going to use it later on. Now we can write our first checkbox. I'm just going to call it checkbox number 1, and it's going to be equal to check button, yeah. In Tkinter, we have this widget that's called check button, and when you use it, all it does is it displays a check button on the screen. Now, if you still remember up here when we are creating questions, we use the widget that's called label, and all that label does is it displays words on the screen. Here we are using a check button. So we want this check button to be in root, and the text is gonna say red, capital red, yeah, like this. And we want to set this checkbox 1 to a variable, and that variable is going to be variable number 1, an integer variable that we created on top here. So let's see how many checkboxes we have. Altogether, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 checkboxes. So, but for question 1, we only have 2. So let me just make it for question 1. Let's copy it and paste it down below. And that's gonna be, let's leave some space here. And that's gonna be checkbox number 2. And it's gonna say green. And then we're not going to assign this checkbox to a variable because we know that green is not the right answer. The color of an apple is not green, so we do not need to assign a variable to this one. The next thing to do now is to put these checkboxes inside the grid. So for checkbox number 1, it's going to be checkbox 1 dot grid, and the row is going to be row number 1 and column 0. And for checkbox 2, it's going to be checkbox 2 dot grid, and row number 2 because we want it to be below checkbox 1, and then column, they're going to be the same column, so this one is going to be column is equal to 0 as well. Now let's run it again and see what happens. Boom, there you have it, our questions and our 2 checkboxes. Now these checkboxes do not do anything yet. Let's go ahead and create the other checkboxes. To make the other checkboxes, I'm just gonna copy these 2 and paste them down below. And these are gonna say checkbox 3 and checkbox 4. And the text for checkbox 3, which is question 2, it's what is the color of banana? The color of banana, we get 2 checkboxes, one for purple and one for yellow. So the first one, and it's supposed to be checkbox 3, yeah, like that, checkbox 3. And the other one is checkbox 4, checkbox 4. And the text should say purple. But we know that purple is not the right answer, so we are going to remove this variable here. And we want this purple checkbox to be in the grid. But where? Let's see. It's going to be in a row number, row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Row 4 and column 0. So that is row 4 and column 0. And the 4th checkbox is going to say yellow. And it's going to be in row number 5 and column 0 because we want it to be below purple. Row 0 and column 0, yeah. I mean row number 5 and column. Yellow checkbox should be in row number 5 and column 0. And then we are going to assign this yellow because we know that it's the answer. We are going to assign it to a variable called variable number 2. Now I've not made this variable yet, so I'm going to go up here and create it. It's going to be named variable number 2, and it's going to be equal to an integer variable. Now let's run it again and see what happens. And there we have them, 2 checkboxes below question number 2. Now the next thing to do is to design the other checkboxes for question number 3 and question number 4. Now to do the other checkboxes, I'm just going to copy this one and paste it down below. And this one is going to be variable number 3. And this one's going to say checkbox number 5, checkbox 5. And the text is going to say, what's the text? It's going to say blue. Yeah, the color of an orange is blue. Funny, right? And the other one's going to say orange. And okay, let's write it down here. Text is equal to blue. And in the grid, we want it to be where? Let's check again. We want it to be in row number 1 and column number 1. So that is row 1 and column 1. And this one is going to be checkbox number 6. Checkbox 6. And it's going to be in row number 2 because we want it to be below we want it to be below the blue checkbox, and it's going to be in row number 2 and column number 1, and its text is going to say orange. And because we know that orange is the right answer, so we're going to assign it a variable, and that is variable number 3. To make the last 2 checkboxes, I'm just gonna copy these and copy them and then paste them down below. Okay, and this one is gonna say variable number 4, and this one will be checkbox number 7, checkbox 7, and this one is gonna be checkbox number 8, checkbox number 8. And in the grid, we want these checkboxes to be where? Let's check. We want the first one, the gold checkbox, to be in row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Row 4 and column number 1. So that is row number 4 and column number 1. And the last checkbox is going to be below that one, so it's going to be row number 5 and column number 1. The text here is going to say God or golden, whatever you want to use. What is the color of God? Maybe yellow? I don't know. Use whatever you want to use. And then this one is going to say silver. And we know that silver is not the color of God, so we're going to remove that variable there and put it on God. And it will be equal to variable number 4. Now let's run it and see what happens. And there you have them, 4 questions and their checkboxes. So the next thing we want to create now is this submit button below here. So let's go ahead and create it. Well, I'm gonna put our button down here. I'm just gonna write a comment first which says create the submit button. And then I'm going to call our button BTN1. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I'm just calling it BTN1. And it's going to be equal to a button widget. So we have this button widget in Tkinter, which displays a button on the screen. And then you have to assign this button to a function to make it do something. And we want this button to be in a root. And the text of this button is going to be equal to submit exam. And down here we are going to put the button in the grid, and it's going to say button1.grid, and in the grid it's going to be in a row number and a column number. So let's check it again. It's going to be in row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 6 and column number, column 0. Yeah. So that is column number 6 and row number 6 and column number is equal to 0. And let's just give it a column span of 2. Now let's see what happens. And oops, our button is in the wrong place. Let's correct it. It's supposed to be 0, not 1. Now let's run it again and see what happens. Okay, there you have it. Our button is in the right place. Now the way these checkboxes are going to work is that they're going to return a value of 1 every time we click them. If you don't click a checkbox, it's going to return a value of 0. Now let's see how we can use them in a function. So I'm going to set this submit button to a function. And I'm just going to call this function the final result. So the way of doing this is by setting command. The command of the button is equal to the final result. And this final result is the function. The function that we are going to create on top here. I'm going to put this function up here just below the questions. And I'm going to write a comment first which says define the function, and I'm gonna define it, and I'm gonna it's called final result. And inside this function, we want to get the value that's returned every time we click these checkboxes. So I'm just gonna name 4 variables. I'm gonna call this one variable 1 is equal to, I'm gonna call it s1 is equal to variable 1 dot get, and I'm just gonna copy it and paste it one time, paste it twice, and paste it one more time, and then this one is going to be s2 is equal to variable 2 dot get, and s3 is equal to variable 3 dot get, and s4 is going to be equal to variable 4 dot get. So down here, let's use an if statement. So I'm going to say if s1 as equal to 1, then we are going to increment count. We're going to say count it's equal to 1. So the way this is going to work is by using our checkboxes. So if we click the first checkbox, for example for question 1, which is red, we are going to get that value through our variable s1 using variable 1 dot get. And if we click the green button, then count is going to be 0 because we did not assign any variable to the green button. And we do that by saying else count is equal to 0. So if we click for question 1, if we click the red button, then count is going to be equal to 1. If we click the green button, then count is going to be equal to 0. And you cannot click the 2 buttons at the same time. You can only click one. Then we are going to say if s2 is equal to 1, s2 is the value we get by clicking the right button for question number 2. Then we are going to increment count, and we do that by saying count plus equal 1. That's another way of incrementing count. And then we are going to do the same for s3 as well as s4. And when the user has finished doing the exam, they are going to hit the submit button. And then we want to have this pop-up down here which says you got dash out of dash questions correct. Where we do this is by using a label, and we call this one label 1, and it's equal to a label widget, and we're gonna put it in the root. And the text of this one is going to say text is equal to you got we are going to add the value of count, but count is an integer and we cannot add an integer and a string, so we have to convert count to a string. So we do that by writing str plus str, and we put count inside. And then we are going to add out of, so it's going to say you got the value of count out of then we're going to add the number of questions. But we know the number of questions that it's 4, but let's not just write it like that. Let's go up here and put all these questions inside a list. So it's gonna say question list is equal to Inside this question list, we just put all our 4 questions. Down here in our label, we can just add the length of our question list. But that is an integer, so we have to convert it into a string. And we do that by writing str inside brackets. We put the length of our question list. Now let's add one more string, which is going to say questions correct. So this entire label is going to say you got the length of count out of the length of question list, questions correct. So that's it. Let's run it to see if it works. So there we have it. Let's make it larger. What is the color of an apple? Red. What is the color of an orange? It's orange. What is the color of a banana? It's yellow. What is the color of God? It's God. Submit exam. Oops, nothing happens. Let's see. Oh, we forgot to put our label in the grid system, so let's put it down here by saying label1 dot grid, and it's going to be in the grid. Let's see. It's going to be in row down here in row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in row number 7, and column 0. So that is row is equal to 7 and column is equal to 0. And let's just give it a column span of 2 so that it covers 2 columns. Now let's run it again and see what happens. Red, orange, yellow. Good. Submit exam. You got 4 out of 4 questions correct, but now we need to put some spaces here. Let's go fix it. We fix it by putting a space where right here. 1 space there and another space there. Let's run it again and see. What is the color of an apple? Red. What is the color of an orange? Maybe blue. I don't know. What is the color of a banana? Purple, maybe. What is the color of gold? Maybe silver. Submit exam. You got 1 out of 4 questions correct. There we have it. A simple graphic user interface in Tkinter using Python. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.